Noah's Ark. The movie Noah is out, and I got to thinking about it again. And everybody who makes a movie about Noah takes license. I mean, after all, there's not a lot in the text. 600-year-old man gets told by God to build a boat. What's in the text is it's got to be, what, like 450 feet long, 45 feet wide, 75 feet high. You know, if you build a model of it, it would be like this. It wouldn't even be a really big container ship today. You know, we've got much bigger container ships out of metal. So, well, what else? What else can we take liberty with? Let's say the world before the flood was at least advanced as what we have today. So Noah, in building his boat, he had large tractor trailers to help him pull the wood over with. He had power tools. Maybe he had a computer to help design and figure out the stresses. If he had 3 decks, maybe he had a nice little reactor inside of it. You know, we are going sci-fi here with the story. After all, Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever has been will be. Whatever will be has been. And to go around and to, you know, get other supplies, he had his own aircraft of some kind. After all, if it's flat like that, it makes a really nice small aircraft carrier. And we do have hovercraft today. And we do have helicopters. So maybe he had a combination of something like that. Some kind of gyrocopter. Levitation. I mean, we are going sci-fi. We're going the opposite side of the direction most people would go. Noah being as advanced as we are today. I mean, after all, there are pillars in India made of metal, doesn't rust. They don't know how. The pyramids were built. Well, we don't quite know how. Actually, if you follow the biblical text, Noah and his sons lived long enough to see those pyramids being built. Think about it. He was 600 years old when the flood came. He lived a few hundred years afterwards. So did his son. So we've got this high-tech Noah. He's got this boat stuffed with, well, how are you going to fit all that food? Well, how do we fit food today? Stuff it in cans, stuff it in MRIs. I mean, if he had everything that we have today, he could store a lot of food in a small place and still have room for his own golf cart that he drove around inside the ark. Think about it. There's enough place for all the animals. There's plenty of place for stored food, especially if you could compress it and process it in a few different ways like we can today. Maybe they had air conditioning. Well, of course, you know, if you had lived that long and you're high tech, you just stuff a nice little, well, what do we have today? We've got kerosene, gasoline, diesel, electric. Who knows? They could have been living in luxury. They could have been much more high-tech than what we are. Then you seal it up, right? Because, you know, after all, you're going to float around for a year out in the ocean, and the waves are going to get pretty big. So a high-tech Noah's Ark goes the opposite way any other story goes with it. And then after the flood, he lands on the mountaintop, right? Hence we have the mythology of the old man on the mountain, right? And of course he was human. And of course in all these legends, all these gods and everything, they're just as human as we are. And Noah outlived dozens of his children. I mean, after all, he lived long enough to see Abraham, Isaac. I mean, he lived until the Middle Kingdom in Egypt. I mean, if you live that long and people have seen you, you know, you got these stories of long-lived people, gods, who actually acted human because, after all, they were just human. They just lived a long time. So all of our mythology, all of our sci-fi, Noah flies back up to the mountains in Ararat because, you know, everything's carefully hid because he knows what human beings are capable of, right? So, of course, he's going to keep it hid in the mountains. Of course, he's going to tell stories. Who would want your children to find you've got all those good things? Don't parents hide their gifts from their children around Christmas and other times of the year? So here's an old man. He knew what people were capable of. He had a few levitation devices, gyrocopters, some form of transportation we can only dream of. Paints it different colors. He's got on his own helmets and everything so that he can breathe up. And he goes around all the world visiting all his children. Comes down, kills a few big dinosaurs that are causing trouble. Pretty high tech, huh? Actually, we've seen stuff like that in just about every movie. But imagine if that was Noah. Well, that would account for all of our mythology. All of it. Well, most of it. So we got this high-tech Noah flying around in his personal aircraft. Goes back home up to the mountains. His wife says, so how are the kids doing today? Well, you know, we got a few thousand over there and a few million over there, and I think Shem's kids over here are going to wipe out Ham's kids over there. And, you know, it wasn't like when we were children. I mean, they're not as violent as they were before the flood yet, you know. I keep stealing things from them, you know, so they don't get quite as advanced. And, you know, with God confounding their languages, that makes it easier. You can keep the kids apart, you know, so that they live basically peaceful and everything. But, you know, I think that settlement that's out there in Asia, I don't think that one's going to last very long. They got good plumbing and everything, but, you know, the leader there, he's a little off. So you can just picture Noah and his wife after a couple 100 years, and their children have spread out all over the world. Makes for a good story, doesn't it? A sci-fi Noah, capable of flying around and seeing his grandkids and telling all sorts of stories so you don't find his favorite fishing spot and nobody comes up to the mountain anymore because, after all, he doesn't want them to know about his technology that he has hidden away. Because you know what human beings do with technology. We just use it to one-up the next guy. So they lived a long and happy life, sort of, buried someplace up in the mountains. All of his technology hidden away. Because, you know, it'll take the kids a while to figure this one out. High-tech Noah. What if?